Are you ready to become a leader and change maker by getting your PhD? Ready to stop stressing and actually take action so you create offer letters instead of rejections? Then this is the spot for you. I'm Dr. Natalie Morse, and I'm here to help you get into your dream PhD with full funding. Let's go. Welcome to the FearlessGrad podcast. I'm Dr. Natalie Morse, and today we're going to be speaking with Matthias Lopez. If you are a person who is transitioning from working, been out of academia for a little bit, going back to your PhD, this episode is going to be really insightful for you. So I'm really excited to have Matthias. He is currently pursuing his PhD in political science at University of Wisconsin-Madison, his top choice. And we're going to hear all about how he did that and tips and tricks and things that he thinks worked well or not so well. So, welcome, Matthias.
Hello, thanks for having me, Dr. Natalie. I am pleased to be sharing my story.
Okay, well, we'll dig in. First off, what made you decide to do your PhD?
I often found myself kind of just wanting to dig deeper in some of the type of theology I was exploring or learning about because that was kind of new to me. Not because I didn't come from this background, but it was just new to me in regards to the fact that this is a distinct type of theology that might be different than Roman Catholicism, non-denominational Christianity, and different branches of Christianity. So that's what got me interested in political theory at a young age. I ended up going to college and studying biology. So that it's about like 2017 where a lot was going on. I decided to pivot to political science. I was involved with the California District 12 congressional district. So as an intern, and I was basically just taking calls with just human beings that are struggling through life. And I began to connect some of the stuff I was reading about or had read about to, uh, the real world, and felt like I needed to do more about this. And part of doing more about this was learning a bit more about political science and as well as more political theory. So I found myself learning from a doctor named Dr. Stephen Miller, who was trained under Wendy Brown at UC Berkeley. And I didn't know any of this and why it mattered at the time. Dr. Stephen saw something in me and he's like, "Hey, I know the type of work you've been doing. Would you consider going into academia actually?" I'm like, "I don't even know what that looks like." You like reading theory. So this is the way to go about it. You go to grad school and you get to read all the time.
It's so interesting how one person can really open a door or change your point of view. So, this is an undergrad. You have this faculty who like sees something in you, but then what happens after undergrad? You go to
Yeah.
work.
So after talking with Stephen Miller at that point, I was taking classes with him at Modesto Junior College. I had to learn more about political science. I went from doing a BS in biology to then pivoting and taking courses at Modesto Junior College. So I was at UC Merced, went to Modesto Junior College, and then from there, I wanted to finish a degree in political theory. So I studied political science and philosophy at University of the Pacific under Dr. Jeffrey Becker, who was a student of Wendy Brown's at UC Santa Cruz. He was a part of this fascinating of crew of political theorists at Rutgers. If you look at this school, I guess, and what was going on there, there's some very famous names, but he studied under a gentleman named Kerry McWilliams. I then finished really getting the discipline of what it looks like to be a political philosopher. Under Dr. Becker, I got into the origins of totalitarianism, dehumanizing human rights, and the jurisprudence. From there, I had the foundation to go to grad school, but I was kind of told, slow your roll. Let's connect these experiences first to the real world in higher ed.
You went to work, and what was your first role out of undergrad?
So out of undergrad at University of the Pacific, I applied for a position in admissions.
And so that's actually surprising that you worked with us because you had been in higher ed admissions yourself. So you knew a lot about the process. Do you think having worked in higher ed helped you get into your PhD program, or what did you gain from that or from
Mm,
working with us?
such a great question. And I think going into the process of applying for PhDs, I did apply when I was in undergrad, and I only applied to one school because that was my dream school.
Okay.
I was advised to apply to more places, but I'm like, no, I'm just going to do what I want. And the funding package, and there was no way to negotiate a better package because I had no leverage. So I really couldn't pursue that option unless I wanted to go into a tremendous amount of debt. So I worked, and through that time in admissions, one of the things that I was trained on, this notion of fit by focusing on fit for the student in front of you. We do a whole lot of right by our students in finding
Mhm.
grad schools. I had no idea where to begin. Moving over to FearlessGrad, at least for myself, and utilizing FearlessGrad, that was the main focus. It was how can I accelerate the information I'm obtaining about universities that might be a good fit, right? I needed to be around other people looking at universities for grad school and those who had been through the process, because that's where the real learning kind of happens. Theoretical is important. I study political theory. That's important.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
oftentimes the theory in practice just doesn't connect. So I needed good advice from people who've done it and people who had more information about places in the nation. I mean, I had never really ventured out of California before. I started to do that during admissions, so that was
Okay.
good. That was useful. There was a lot of anxiety about what to expect in other parts of the nation. So
That's interesting because I get that a lot from people. It's hard, right? Because nobody wants to pick up all their life belongings and leave loved ones and move across the country and then hate it. That is a huge piece of the puzzle. It's hard also because every person is going to react differently to an environment. So what is good for, like you said, like your higher ed admissions background of understanding this individual person and what works for them is not going to work for the other person. That is a tricky thing for sure. Well, what was beyond that? Did you have any other big fears about applying or the process in general?
it's always been the fear of unknown for myself. That might resonate with other people, but it's what I didn't know that like, oh, I'm gonna go to this place and what if I hate it, right? But then you could also what if you love it? I was always more
Mm.
focusing on what could go wrong. If you have the information, you're removing that fear of the unknown. Sure, things could always go wrong, but that was the main concern about the PhD journey and indicating
Mm.
programs that are the right fit because I was open minded to go beyond California or even beyond the confines I trapped myself in. It's like I'm only applying to one program and that's it. If I'm going to do this right, I have to be as open minded as possible. And as one of my good friends says, is the word they like using. I had to be a sponge. I had to be a total sponge and take in as much of the information that was coming my way from whoever was willing to provide me with information. So I became, yeah, just interested in doing that. And that helped diminish the fear outside of other like the concerns that might have kept me from going through the process. I wouldn't say so. I would say it might have been the funding, it's like, okay, I did this once
Mm.
before and I didn't have the best funding package, so maybe I need to focus on getting into more than one university, so I
Mm.
just have some options, so it was also creating options while balancing that idea of I may not be qualified to even get into a single program. So,
That's a
yeah,
lot of ground. And
yeah.
that makes sense because we're multifaceted. So we have many different fears from different angles. The fear of the unknown makes perfect sense. That's human nature. We would rather stay somewhere that makes us feel terrible than potentially going somewhere that could be amazing, but also maybe worse. And then the funding package, that is true too, especially if you've been working a while, right? Because grad students do not get paid well. However, we get paid to focus on our personal development and research for 4 years. That is an insane gift.
So I was admitted to multiple places, let's just say that, and places that before the Fearless Guide process, I just hadn't highlighted or even in my mind, I'm like, there's no way. There's just no way I'm getting into that program. But there was one program, Illinois Urbana-Champaign, pretty high on my list at the time. It still was between them and Wisconsin Madison. But yeah, these funding packages, something that I didn't know about the fellowships, right? How many years where you don't have to TA? How much did that
Mm.
matter? That was all new to me. So I had full funding from these multiple places dispersed across the country with a concentration in the Midwest. But yeah, some they had let's just say that the what was the rationale was who gave me more years of fellowship without service. Yeah, or funding
You
chose
could
those
have your
places.
time. Your
Yeah,
time is
because
so valuable. Yeah.
so I could just focus on being a teacher. I think in of itself that requires a certain amount of training, and I think before I wanted to get there, I still wanted more training just so I could really be the best educator possible. And I knew my first year I want to be on a fellowship. I need to learn more. And I also want the time to get acquainted with getting back into it, right? Going from industry to getting back into the groove. I
Mhm.
just wanted to do it right. And that's what it felt like to me is being having full funding without service that first semester. at least the first semester. And in this case, the program gave me or provided me, University of Wisconsin Madison, a full 2 years, but one his first year, and then another one once I reached dissertator status. But also, there was a bit of confidence about their game plan. They're like, yeah, you're going to finish here in 5 years. Like, that's the process. And so that was another
Mhm.
thing that was important. You might
Mm.
have guaranteed funding for 6 years, but what if in this program, there's individuals that aren't finishing until year 8, wasting
No,
everyone's
that's
time?
a no for me. That's
Yeah,
a hard.
no, right. I learned this by getting the nitty gritty inside details from students in the program. I gauged it from fit, but also I think most humans want to be happy. And I just said,
Mhm.
I basically counted on my finger, where are the happy students? Where are there more concentrations of happy students? And
Mm.
there's happy students in all these places, but it was just there was an edge somewhere else kind of thing. It
Mm,
was like,
sure.
where am I happiest? Because I think we do our best work when we are also comfortable and secure. I mean, funding helps with that, but I think it's just really like what it makes you happy, and this type of weather versus this other type of weather versus being close to family versus being get these, get away from family. Different
Yeah.
factors make us happy. It was
The
ultimately like what's important to me, finding the place that connected to that. But I like the game plan idea. I really think that's what sold me. Is someone's like, this is a kind of like a game plan. We approach it in this way. And then when I
mm,
was on the visit, which we could maybe talk about, visits are so important to get that feel.
yeah.
It's the level of focus on professional development every day. When you step foot in the public sphere, you're a representative of that university. I love that. I love that idea. That's what I did for work. Every day I'm in the public sphere. If I'm eating dinner, I'm wearing the logo, like I'm representing that place, and that gets into people's heads. And if I'm doing it negatively, that's going to create a bad image for my university or whoever I represent, even my family.
So you're saying that university explicitly was like, "We believe this, and we want to support you, and we have all the resources to develop you and to
Yeah.
make you more successful in all these spaces."
They like the proof is in the pudding is something I was saying at this time. Another thing I was saying was like drink the Kool-Aid. I like just the confidence in their program. They're like, yeah, not only are we good, we're good, we're ranked right here. And chances we're moving up. So you're telling me you have a national championship caliber potential team here.
Mm,
Yes. And they're
and
like, and you could be a part of that. You know what I mean? Like,
that's
that's
cool.
maybe
Mm,
like doing things like competition, these kind of philosophical notions of competition. I think things could be competitive. We know PhDs are
mm,
competitive, right? We
mhm,
use that language and then trying to become a professor, right? That's competitive, right?
mm.
Competitive, right? So
You were talking about team and championship team. I was thinking about the PhD or research academia space. My husband watches a ton of football. Not everyone is going to make it to the NFL. You know how many amazing collegiate athletes never make it to the NFL, right?
mhm,
If you don't get into a PhD program, it doesn't mean you're not a great researcher, but not everyone's going to make it. And then on those NFL teams, not everyone's going to make it to the Super Bowl, and not everyone's going to win the Super Bowl, right?
yes,
So it doesn't mean that you are not amazing, but we have to be honest. There, it is a competitive space, just like football, just like any space. It People will be super negative about academia or PhD, but everything you go into is competitive. You go into medicine, law, entertainment. You want to be an actor? Good luck. It does people a disservice when you only look at the negative as opposed to if you want to do it. What's the point of beating yourself up about it? Why not put your energy in like, okay, what's the best I can do versus
exactly.
like let's stay over here and make fun of the other people who are trying because I can't even try, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That was a kind of a philosophical trend of I think my generation. Like when I grew up, it was kind of like I'm really grateful I went to the type of high school I went to because it was just a bunch of dudes trying to push each other. 'Cause there's no one else to impress, and if you're able to have a space where you're just focusing on this idea, you're you're your own enemy or your best competition, and it really created this internal clock in me to drive myself and my behavior until I left that space. I found myself questioning the whole notion of competition. Once I got a purpose, right? Once I talked to like Dr. Stephen Miller, and he's like, "You should go for this," and I'm like, "Okay, tell me more." He's like, "Maybe shoot for Berkeley," right? Like, shoot for Berkeley, right? That's where he went. So I thought he was biased, but then I started like, oh, Berkeley's like one of the best PhD programs in the world.
Yeah.
But once I knew that I was going to apply to Berkeley, Stanford, right? That's kind of what really pulled me towards Fearless Grad. It was like, okay, how do I make myself the best possible? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it my all. And that means I'm going to need to be on a team to help me be my all.
Right? Like, it's just harder to do things alone. It's just human nature. I'm a human. I go to the gym to be with other humans working out. At my house, I'm like, okay, cool. I did 2. I'm done. Great. So, what was the most impactful? What was the hardest part of the application for you? The best, most fun? And then maybe the most surprising part through the process?
The best part of the application cycle, other than having success, is really putting your ideas down onto paper and kind of taking a seat back, like we're doing a review, doing like a glance at like what you've just written and seeing how far you've come. That was the best part. The most rewarding part.
How do you think you got better? Because if you say how far you came, what was the process that took you from A to B?
It was, first module FearlessGrad, to be honest. I was struggling to get just on the paper, like really being honest to yourself. Like, what is driving me beyond someone telling you should go for it? Like, what has been driving me, right? So it was kind of digging deep. So years ago, actually, when I first left to college, had a really great friend named Dr. Chuck Dahlgren. God bless his heart. Like he was a nose and mouth specialist. He was a surgeon, but he was my neighbor and we connected over dogs. I bring him up because he's very important to my life. One of the last phone calls we had before I left to college was I was asking, hey, what does it look like to become a medical doctor? That was something I was kind of curious about. What does the medical doctor, what does that life look like? Not just what
Yeah.
you see, but what does it look like
Ah,
when someone gets there? And, he played football at Berkeley and he was a very adventurous, athletic guy. One thing he told me that really stuck out was, Matthias, go to college and do the stuff you love. Do the stuff you love. And the stuff you're doing that you love, that's for other people, like community service. Like if you're doing that kind of stuff, remember that because that's probably what you should be doing the rest of your life. So I
mm,
was like, oh, he's like, yeah, for example, when I was at Berkeley, I did a lot of stuff that involved blood, stuff that related to the healthcare industry because it was fun. So that's really what stuck out. It's like, okay, during my time in college, during my time at Modesto Junior College, during my time at even admissions, what was I doing on my free time for fun for other people? And I focused on that, right? So I was, yeah, that was cool because I had kind of forgotten, right? You're just like, I'm doing this for fun. So that was something I think is what I kind of was able to trace because I was really stuck in that first module. Really,
getting a little bit more of a North Star in a strategic way versus a nebulous way. You guys are all ridiculously smart. None of my clients are dumb. It's not that you don't have good ideas or you're not smart or you're not passionate, but it's focusing it all. You can't do everything. You do have to refine. Getting that first kernel is a really good start. So I love that that was helpful.
yeah, that was the best. Did you say what was the difficult part in the application?
What was the hardest part for you?
I think it was just like pressing submit. That was so hard because I was often a bit ahead when I was submitting. For one of them, my last application I submitted, I'm pretty sure I think it was Wisconsin. He goes to Wisconsin because that was the one I applied like with the most like ease. I was so relaxed applying, maybe because it wasn't high on my list yet. Just keep on looking at your application, proof
Mm,
you submitted it. No, just chill out. The decisions are going to come when they come. So yeah, submitting it to the rating was that was actually like dreadful. I was going to the gym every single morning at around like 5:30, right before work. I go like 5:30, right when it opened, just because I couldn't sleep and I would run my worries away. If, if I think because you're an engineer, you might know if the admissions people have access to how many times the applicant
oh,
clicks.
it was like click, like check,
Yeah,
check, 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 check. That's funny.
I really am confident that I took first place out of all these places. I feel like I was checking once every 2 hours.
That's funny. How was the networking throughout? Did you talk to people
Ooh,
like faculty and
man.
such?
Yeah, it was very pleasant. I think in my field, it is something that is encouraged in political science to really, like, I didn't know this before FearlessGrad to even contact professors. My advisors and some of my folks at Pacific had recommended I do this. Yeah, definitely nervous to do this, but through the FearlessGrad process, the template and going about it in that way, just having a lot of confidence in this because I'm already more than halfway through the modules at this point. It was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm already like finding success. I know I could do this. So I wasn't too nervous and I definitely got a lot of emails back, right? I got emails back from most of the places that I had applied to with follow-up questions like, let me know if there's more I could do for you. And even if there's any students you'd like to speak to, just let me know. As far as
Awesome.
reaching out to students, that was something I did ish. Um, only to like 2 programs I would reach students.
Hmm.
So in that case, I didn't really get too much success. And then at a few places like Wisconsin and Illinois, I was able to, and Nebraska even, I was able to talk more with the professors on the phone or through Zoom. Lovely people all around. All of them were excited. They just wanted to do what was best for me. We'll
That's
give you the
awesome.
information, but also be sure to look at these other places. Oh, you're looking
Yeah.
at Rice? Good. Can you tell me more why you're looking at that place? Although you say you want to do these things. And I'm like, well, I also really like theory. And they're like, oh, it makes sense. Well, if that is the case, our program really isn't doing that. We are hired, so just great
Yes.
people
That's what
being
I say.
fair.
Yes, the networking is like they will typically recommend others because we just don't know all the things. You don't know 50 schools in and out, and they know, so they can be like, oh, so and so, and that's why they're so helpful. Okay, I want to know a little bit more about transitioning from being a working professional to the PhD space. First, what did your friends, family, peers say to you when you were saying, "Hey, I want to go do my PhD"?
This was about 2017, 2018. I go home, everyone's home. And I was kind of like, Matthias, what are you doing? You're studying biology. Now you're pivoting. What's going on? So I tell them, like my interests here, my family, but I'm going to be a professor. Trust me, I'm going to do this. And there was concerns like at that point, right? There was like, hey, it's like extremely competitive. You're going to be critiqued your whole life. And I was like, I'm not sure what it looks like, but I'm going to do this. So by the time we get to 2024, I have 4 sisters, a few of them already are in PhDs
Yeah.
in different places. They're always talking about their experiences. I think I'm very privileged to have that type of information about what things look like. From the political science area, my professors at Pacific and even Stephen Miller would often tell me about their grad school experience and what that looked like, and with different points in history. Academia changes, education changes, and the
Yeah.
things we focus on as institutions, things we value, how we want our students to act or behave changes. So moving from industry to back into a PhD space, it was kind of a dream come true, So kind of like moving, like there was a lot of inertia moving me through that,
Okay.
but just like sitting down and doing the work was something that I was less doing, I guess. I was reading still, but very unfocusedly. And most of my time in admissions was really talking to people. I had to learn. And part of the reason why I chose Wisconsin is there's a professor named Kathy Kramer who interviewed me and also really like, hey, we could really work well together. What's neat about it is I want them to also know that like, I want them to think of me highly, right? My PhD peers, my cohort. I want people to think of me highly. But that kind of requires for me to speak. But then I'm like, is there
Mhm.
more value in just listening, right? And focusing on that person. But I think that was something that was so valuable. And that's something that I obtained from you, Natalie, is you let us all come to the FearlessGrad meetings or even one-on-ones. And you're just so good at listening, being there with this intention of like, I do want to listen. I'm here for you. And
Yeah.
that's something that I definitely quickly incorporated because it was successful. It made my days just a lot easier by saying, you don't have to be impressive. Just be
Mm.
here and be kind, be good, and,
Mm.
people really value those who listen. It's
With my
needed.
pen. I'm always taking notes because I don't wanna interrupt, but my brain is like, "Wait, let me write that down." And you know what's interesting is having done my PhD, I have PhD confidence. I have a thing where I know I'm capable, I know I'm good. Whereas earlier, if you don't have credentials, you do have to be a little bit more elbowing people out of the way because we all kind of blend in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There is a level that kind of comes through that, and you get that through the process, like, just like you're doing right now, you're gonna build this over the next 4 years as you do all of the cohorts and seminars, and you give your conferences, and you do your defense, and, like, all of that is just gonna continue to build that skill set, which is fun. Okay, so you had a supportive I mean, not a lot of people have that, to be honest. A lot of people hear negative things like, don't do that. Why would you have a good job? Why would you leave your job? So that's really quite nice that everybody was supportive of you.
I am very, like, privileged, I think, of that because there was already understandings from those who cared about me of what it meant, what it represented, what it looked like even. And I know other people don't have that, which is like, it's just a lot easier when you have people to support you. And that's, yeah, also
Mhm.
in the modules, but the Fearless Guy community just was like, even, you know, it added just an extra layer. And I think kind of reflecting on that, becoming more grateful about my situation compared to people who I have come across that don't have that network. It did reemphasize the need to focus on listening. How can I show support for others that don't
Mhm.
have a good support system? Like that makes it more essential for me to be supportive of them and their goals,
Mhm.
without kind of stepping over. I really do think education and obtaining a PhD needs to make sense. And if it makes sense to the individual,
Right.
education kind of sets you free. I really believe that to my core. Yeah, baby bias.
Education or skills or money, right? Like if you are independently wealthy, right? If
Yes.
mom and dad are giving you millions of dollars, you're pretty free. I mean, unless it comes with strings, right? Unless they're like, this money comes to you if, then you're not free. But yes, something like that.
Yes, you're right.
What were your funding packages in terms of money ranges?
Yeah. So basically, like 30, like already tuition or so tuition remission is already thought about. But yeah, I think just looking at the raw amount, it was usually around 30 to 36 eventually.
Okay, not a lot of money, but livable. Do you feel like you're livable on that, or how do you feel right now that
I
you've
love it.
started?
I love it because you're doing what I was always dreaming of. This is the type of life
Mm,
I envisioned.
the
It's not, I
vibe.
mean, yeah, when I was at admissions, I'm so grateful for that role. But, we had kind of like at every money stipend, right? Like every day we're there looking, visiting schools, connecting with students. Like it's not hard work. It was very enjoyable work. It was very fitting work to what I'm passionate about. But you still have this credit card to just throw it on the card. It did feel like, well, I know I want to do a PhD eventually, and that's going to be less of these fancy dinners. But it was like, I'm in admissions right now or industry. This is what my life looks like. Eventually it'll change. It changes. I know what I'm getting myself into. It's not going to look like steak dinners every day. And so it's going to look like reading and learning more stats. And it's like, that takes some time, right? So it's more, how do you budget your time? So I think and I usually I've always kind of been more like budgeting my time. It's like, okay, before this role, I was investing my time in the PhD so I could be here. I also had a lot of time. It's like, okay, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to improve my life into where I can. But not
Mhm.
being a PhD, because I'm in the industry, I can't control that. But what I can control with my time is making myself the best applicant possible. Now that I'm here, I may not have that luxurious lifestyle, but this is what I wanted. I knew it was going to look like a certain thing. When it comes to raw economics, the currency really is time, because it just is. It's time to sleep, time to make this type of meal versus this other, time to go to the gym.
It's interesting you say that about time because time is the only thing you can't buy. It is the
Yeah.
ultimate, most precious resource. That's what the PhD gives you time and space to focus on what you care about, get stronger in areas and build relationships. You're investing your time with the thought that it's going to pay off. I have a question about your cohort. Are people coming from similar background? Like, could you just maybe, because everybody's
I love
different
that
and
question. I love
I
this
want to know a
question
little
so
bit
much.
more.
Yeah. I chose Wisconsin. That was also a huge, there was multiple things, but that was like, I did see that what they were doing was building a very strong team for like now and the future. We just went through so many job talks of potential people joining the department. They're expanding. I didn't
Mm.
see that in other places I visited, although they were great. They had a very specific idea what they were doing, and their focus was just on not that, right? So Wisconsin's focusing on this, and part of this kind of game plan and getting more professors. My cohort was quite large. Some of these other places I was admitted, one place only admitted one other PhD student. That's it.
Wow.
And so I quickly had to tell them, like, if you're going to keep the spot open for another person, I just need to tell you, I don't want to waste anyone's time. Give it to someone else.
If you're
Left,
only
right?
taking two people, good
Exactly.
Lord.
And so
Yeah.
other places, right? Some had 12, some had, 10. Ask questions like, what does retention look like? What goals? You might have admitted 20 at one place, but only 10 are going to come here. For
Mhm.
example, I got to Davis, and when I was doing my visit at Wisconsin, about like four other people here were also admitted to Davis. And like, hey, you guys going? And they're like, no, we got into Wisconsin. And I don't know what that meant at the time, but that's what they told me. With Wisconsin, 20 people in the cohort in the past were averaging around 10, 12. Like, so this was kind of neat. I think there was about like maybe 25 people. I mean, I don't have the exact number, but some
Mhm.
of these people that I was coming across on visit day, we had one gal, brilliant, right? She getting into Ivies and ended up choosing Berkeley. But there was candidates similar to that. And there were some individuals that were like, even myself was like, I can't believe I'm here. Oh, this
Yeah.
is big time. I've done it.
Yeah. It's a
And
whole spectrum.
there was a spectrum. And then life, as far as the level, like, we have some students who are practicing lawyers, some that already had a PhD in another country. So we also have,
Okay.
I think the average cycle, I know everyone was so unique. That was so attractive to me. The different backgrounds, the different emphasis. I usually like thinking about what type of philosophy is happening in political science, what kind of political theory is happening. Some places that I had been admitted to weren't really doing theory. But in my cohort, there were about 6 theorists visiting that day. I had to really think about and talk with them and then think about what type of work they were doing and the fact that they were covering so much ground from history, like all across history. I'm like, I have to be here. This is once in a lifetime. Instead of reading countless literatures, you could just be like, I have a question about scholasticism to this one individual.
Mm,
They'll tell you exactly where you need to read, what you need to read. And
access,
yeah,
power, proximity to power is so important. Power, expertise, resources, whatever you want to call it, so important. I think that's a big thing about the PhD. They're investing so much time and energy into you. So you have access to them and expertise and networks, and you are going to build off of it, right? Like you don't have to start from down here because you get to start up here with what they know and what they've done. And that is so helpful. That's a good call out. The cohorts. Do you think the majority of people had masters straight from undergrad? Some were lawyers, just
Mm.
plethora of different
Yeah,
folks.
there's 20 individuals. I'd say like half had masters, really. I'd say like about half from just different types of
Yeah.
institutions.
And you don't have a
I did
master's.
not. That
Yeah.
was part of the like, I was gonna finish it, but I'm like, "No, I'll just apply this cycle, and I'll do it the best I can through Fearless," because I was tired of the time. I was tired of waiting.
Mhm.
I wanted to go for it. But yeah, you're right. I did not have a master's, and that was really concerning me. And there were, yeah, a few people that were working, like, in industry or, like, in yeah, certain labs, but did not have a master's, but they had the
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
About the program really wanted to make half of my cohort about their international students. So that's
Oh,
also something that I really enjoyed is just like learning about the world, right? From
different
these
perspectives.
people. Yeah.
If anybody were starting right now to think about applying to the PhD process, what would you tell them? Like, really focus here or don't waste your time here? What would you tell them?
Ooh, go for it, but give it your all. Right. Do it right. What that looks like for you. I think most of us we know if we could give more, right? We know if we could do more. I've done things half-heartedly.
Mm,
It's not enjoyable. It's probably not going to get the results I want. Honestly, it's just less memorable. We hope you only apply once and you get into your dream program. So when you want to make it memorable, I remember a lot of these nights. I remember a lot of these mornings during that time. They're beautiful to me because sometimes when I even now, like it's like now I'm where I want to be.
mm,
I could reflect on those moments where things weren't perfect and be like, whoa, even in a year, I'm here now. Like if it was a year ago, January, I think I would had already been admitted to some places, but during that
mm,
first week of January, I couldn't sleep. Give it your all, make it memorable. Only no one else is going to do it for you, right? That's kind of the
mm,
obvious. But if you're willing to do those things, there is probably methods to enhance your way of doing it, right? Like have a team, whatever that team looks like. Get people to read your applications. That's essential. It has to happen no matter what field. You have to have people reading your materials, no matter how intelligent you think you are. We
mm,
all benefit from it. I just keep the faith, like you already started the
mhm.
process. Don't lose hope. Keep going.
Think about how much harder it
Yeah.
would be if every time your faith dipped or you took a step back, right? Climbing that stair step just became double the amount of time because you didn't just go 1, 2, 3, 4. You went 1, 2, 1, up to back one. Putting your energy forward makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
What did it feel like when you got your acceptance and I know you had multiple, so maybe it wasn't just some people are like laser focused on one, but what did it feel like when you actually, signed the paper and like, I'm coming here? What did that feel like?
It was a tough decision to make, but I do want to focus on what it felt like when I did receive the letters from every single place. I felt like for everyone, I won a Super Bowl, right? I felt that good. Right. Every single one was like I was extremely celebratory for. The first one I got was Illinois. I remember this because I was staying the night I was staying the night in a place that I hadn't planned on. It got too late and I was stressed about the weather and the driving and stuff. It was a late night. So I think it was like 3 a.m. Couldn't sleep. And I got this email from the DGS at Illinois and it was just awesome, right? It was like, wow. And at the time I was reading Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, which is neat because he's from Urbana. So I just felt very meta and special.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
just one of the sweetest things I've ever experience. After talking to Kathy, being interviewed by her, I was like, read her book like immediately after. I was like, there's no way I'm getting in there. Like at that point, I'm like, this program's really good. But she ended up sending me my congratulations. That was surreal because what was so surreal about it was how I had no idea I was going to even apply there. I had no idea about this program. I had no idea about how strong it was. And I kind of just like it, it became like the focus. It's like they're
Mm-hmm.
doing what I want to do. They're doing exactly how I want to do it, not in a way that I thought up
Mm-hmm.
front, but like in a way that is important to me, in a way
Mm-hmm.
that I knew I can make a difference and a contribution to the research. That's why I was like, this feels special too.
I,
So making that between those was a tough decision. Yeah.
but I love how open you were because I think everybody has a few key programs. Like we all know the name of, a Stanford or whatever. But then actually doing this process, finding the right fit for you, you have to be open to it and you have to do the work. And so you did it and it paid off so well. If you had skipped that step or something, you would have different results.
Surprising things happen all the time, but recently I was
Mm,
swimming in the ocean and I'm like, wow, I'm living the dream. I'm exactly where I want to be. Just got into Illinois. I'm so pumped. My life's set. Then out of nowhere, I see these beautiful turtles swimming in a little pack and I'm like, I thought I was already in the dream. Now I am.
that's so
That's kind
cool.
of what it was like. I thought I had it all figured out, but what beyond for me is even things I can't see. Now I'm
Mm.
in this program that really is like the dream. And every day is just special. Every day in this
Y-
program is surprising and good.
See the turtle. I love that. See the turtle. Okay. I love that. You're also new in your program. So you're going to hit some lows. You're going to hit some highs. So, like, we know that that's happening. But I love that you started off in a strong position. What I like to do with my people to get you there in a strong position so you can hit the ground running. Hopefully that's all going super well for you.
The process is so good overall because we're always reflecting and we always can reflect. So I'm glad and
Yeah.
grateful that your program creates such a like it's like, you're gonna your lifestyle in a way could change or shit mine did. It's like I gotta set a 30 minutes at least every day just to touch the modules. Anything where you're returning to it every single day, you're gonna remember that. I'm glad I could
Well,
hold on to that throughout and remember that, right? Because it's you invest in yourself. And oftentimes, after you take 4 steps forward, why would you want to go back?
that's awesome. Anything that you think you did that set you apart or that others should try to replicate, especially in the political science space? I think you hit on a lot of this, like the networking and things, but anything that you thought was like, hey, this may have given me an edge.
I think just being in admissions helped out a ton, especially when I visited programs because
Mm.
I kind of like it did really set me up. Being in admissions did set me up for success, and doing Fearless Grad set me up for success because what those things did was destigmatize the PhD and the application process. And I'm understanding that I'm there for a reason. I was chosen at these visits because I hope to see these people at conferences. I hope to see them as political science. I hope to see them as collaborators. So I do think
Mm,
that was huge because then when I ended up joining Madison and being a part of this program, I think it continues to pay off where people are like, you know, I'm approachable. And I think that's so important where
mm.
like being kind one moment kind of trickles into the future.
Two things. You were able to be present. You knew enough what was happening behind the curtain that you weren't as freaked out by the curtain,
Look,
so you could be present. And then the other was being a kind, helpful human. Everybody wants to work with people like that. So both of those make sense.
that's what you focused on too. It's like, yes, but be a good person. And that's what I kind of was teasing out for is where are the good people at? Kind people, a lot of kind people everywhere. And that's awesome. I think
Yeah.
education should be one of the most kind places where we're treating people very well. I left that place just thrilled. On the flight back, that's when I made my decision. I sent the text message to the family. I
Oh,
fell in
that's
love. I
cool.
fell in love with
That's cool.
the place. I'm like, I'm gonna be happy here. So yeah, you're right. It's just beginning, and I'm so grateful every day to be here. The -20-degree weather was,
I can't. No, 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 no.
but it's still very beautiful.
Hey, man, born and raised in the Midwest. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I am actually currently making a website, but usually for PhD students, they have their pages up. So if you type in University of Wisconsin-Madison, political science, PhD, you'll see all the lists of graduate students. In my department, they're probably really open-minded. But really, myself included, like you'll see my email there. It's matthias.lopez@wisc.edu. feel free to contact me at any time, talk
Great.
more.
I'm sure people would love to get in contact with you. For other folks, if you want to do this work on a deeper level with people who get it and who are into the PhD space, we invite you to work with us in the Fearless Grad program.